Welcome to the Women Inspire Aspire podcast. In this episode, I talk to Ritu Malhotra about sustainability education. Hi Ritu, thank you for accepting my invite to appear in this podcast. How are you doing today?
My pleasure, Venkat, to be here with you today. I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I am doing great. It's Diwali time and so busy, but the podcast happens nevertheless. So tell us a bit about yourself, your background.
Okay, so I'll start by telling you from the beginning. My father was a professor at IIT, so I grew up on the campus in Delhi, and I had very limited interaction with the outside world when I was growing up in my growing up years. I think the first time I stepped out of the campus was when I went to college, really, because my
Wow.
growing up, everything was provided on the campus, and we had people from the same background. So it was, though I grew up in Delhi, but I hardly had much of an interaction with Delhiites as such. So I went to college, I went to LSR to do my English honors. I got married pretty early. I was 23 when I got married, and that was a big leap for me. And after marriage, I went abroad, and you can imagine somebody who hadn't been outside the campus going abroad was such a big leap. I got introduced to the world. I had been working in publishing till then, and I decided to make a switch to teaching around the same time. I was going to have my first child, and I thought it would be better to have a teaching job where I can perhaps manage home and work and strike a balance between the two. And I think that's when changes within me started occurring. I had been in a private job. I was earning quite well, but teaching brought a new perspective to my life because when I started interacting with children, I realized that there's a lot that can be done with these children just beyond teaching them math, science, and languages. And I started having that urge from that day only, which this was back in 2020. I didn't do anything about it for a few years. I went back to publishing, went back to US for the second time, came back again, and again went back to teaching. And this time the urge was very strong. You can call it midlife crisis or what, I do not know. But this time the urge was really very strong. And I got introduced to the UN Sustainable Development Goals around this time. I had been publishing, bringing out books for students. So I had been reading about different subjects. So when I got introduced to the SDGs and about sustainability and environment protection, I was really moved myself. And I had this desire to do something around it. As with all teachers, something that was very close to my heart, I took it to my students also in school. And I was astounded to see how positively these children responded when I started speaking to them about climate change, about environment protection, about sustainability, about sustainable development goals. And I felt that all that I had been looking for, to do something meaningful, something transformative in the space of education, the answer was here in my hand. And that was my epiphany, you can say, or moment of change in life when I decided to do this for a living. So I quit my teaching job. It was a leap of faith. And I started my own company. And in my own company, which is called ARC is where we complete the circle of learning. I started educating children about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I've been doing this work for 5 years now. There's a lot that needs to be done in this field. So I thought I would venture out into mental health and other financial literacy and other things that need to be brought into the landscape of education. But sustainability itself is such a huge field that it's taking up all my time. And there's a lot more that I want to do with children.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. I have so many questions that's coming up to my mind, so let me ask them one by one. So, when you decided to do the sustainability education to the children, which ones were the schools or the institutions which were interested in your work and ready to make you as their client?
Okay, this is a very interesting part. I'm glad you asked this question. When I started, of course, I started with the children I was teaching, and it was a more progressive school, as one would call it, a private school in Delhi NCR. But once I started taking it to various schools, I thought this will be the more progressive massive set of students whose basic needs are met, whose parents are not economically struggling, and who are in the higher strata of society, who will embrace this curriculum because they will be the first ones to realize that it's their responsibility to take care of the environment because the other problems are taken care of. I started working with them initially, and yes, I was not mistaken. They were quick to embrace it. But I got an opportunity to work with the underserved at some point in time. And there I noticed that the change I was able to bring in the mindset was a lot more. So far, I had been dealing with teaching children that it is their responsibility to take care of the environment, to do something to put an end to eradicate poverty or to maintain gender equality in the society. But when I started working with the underprivileged children, I realized that it is about rights with them. Nobody has ever told them what is the way to break the cycle of poverty. Nobody has ever told them that they have a right to education. It is a child right, it's a human right. So here the education took a different meaning altogether. And obviously you can imagine how fulfilling that would be for a person like me. So ever since I have touched those lives, I have been trying through the foundation which I floated since then to reach out to more such children from economically weaker section of the society, to teach them about sustainability, to teach them about their rights, to talk about human rights and bring them at par.
Now your focus is on the underprivileged section of the society.
So I have my organization now is for profit, which is a private limited company that works with private schools because we have to sustain ourselves. Also, we have to get our bread and butter. Then I have our foundation. So I'm parallelly working with private schools and government schools. So the money that I earn and the profits I make, I can pump some of that money into serving the underprivileged.
Okay, that's great. So when you talk about sustainable development goals, I think there are many, right? If I'm not wrong. So are you focusing on any specific development goals as priority?
There are 17 goals in all. The topics range from poverty to gender equality to good health and well-being to peace, justice, and partnership for the goals. Of course, climate change education takes the focus of everything because, as everyone knows, we don't have much time left to protect the planet before we hit 1.5 degree centigrade rise in temperatures. So there's a lot of urgency attached to climate action. So there's a lot of focus on that. But if you ask me what is the primary goal I'm addressing through my work, it would be SDG 4, which is quality education, because I am into the field of educating people about sustainable development goals. Then it's up to them which goal they want to embrace. If they want to work in the renewable energy sector, it's their choice. If they want to work towards uplifting women, which is gender equality, goal number 5, it's their choice. So my job is to educate more and more people about the sustainable development goals. That's why it's quality education.
Wonderful. So, do you follow any specific curriculum that you have designed, or is there a standard curriculum that's already available that you impart to the children?
This was the biggest challenge, Venkat, that I faced when I started out. I wanted to teach children about sustainability, but there was no content available. There was no structure around it. Nobody knew what to do. So many schools had been trying to include it in their curriculum, but it's not standardized. It mainly depends on the capacity of teachers. And teachers, as you know, come with different capacities. One of them might be doing a wonderful job, but the other one may not be so motivated to be working that well with children about this cause. So that was the first thing I did. I created a structure around SDGs, how they should be integrated in the curriculum. Then I brought out books, grade-wise books for students, which schools can use. And then I started working towards capacity building of teachers, because the first step is to motivate teachers to teach this content. So a big part of my work, which is unpaid, is to go from school to school and work with teachers, and not one subject teacher, all teachers, and do their capacity building around SDGs, motivate them, inspire them, handhold them, and walk them through this curriculum so that they can effectively implement this in their schools, because teachers are the one who will be delivering that content ultimately. So this is how we do it.
Great. It's wonderful that you came up with content to cover the topic. Now let's talk about the train the trainers thing that you talked about. You are going to train the teachers so that they can deliver the subjects. What are the kind of challenges that you faced when you try to handhold the teachers, or when you try to teach them or train them in this topic?
The biggest challenge so far I have faced in my training is the availability of teachers. My work involves training all the teachers of a school because my content is subject integrated. It's not taught as a separate subject. It's not for the social science teacher or for the science teacher to talk about sustainability. It's for every teacher to talk about sustainability and to integrate it in their subjects. So you could be an English teacher. I will tell you how to integrate it in English. You could be a math teacher. I will tell you how to integrate it with maths. That's what I do in my workshops. So I think it's very difficult to get all teachers together at the same time and make them attend this training. So that has been the biggest challenge so far. Sometimes only coordinators come and they are supposed to go back and train teachers further. I'm not very sure if they're able to do it effectively or not, but this is still a struggle. I'm trying to find a way to overcome it.
Okay. I guess some amount of supervision and oversight might help. Some kind of observation when they are doing it might be able to help you in figuring out if they are doing it right, I guess.
Yes. So we I try to go back to the schools I have worked with or teachers I've trained and see whether they're doing it effectively. And of course, there's so much attrition. Teachers keep leaving and new teachers keep joining. So it's important to do this refresher from time to time. I try my best, but it's just difficult to do it at a scale.
Right, I understand. That's a great problem. Let's talk about the gap between the education and the reality. Now, since I have been looking at the climate change for a while, and I have been involved with some international organizations which are doing the work, and I am also from the tech background, which is where some of the aspects of technology is also responsible for the shift towards the climate change. I mean, in a bad sense. So there is a gap. And so several organizations have been trying to work to limit the climate change and this 1.5 degree C target. But there is a great difficulty in bringing about the change in terms of the vested interests and the powers that be in terms of the implementation. Now, we can all talk about education, we can talk about empowering the people, but when you are educating the children, do you get a feel of how these children are going to implement those points in the real society where they live or where they work? So I have been through organizations which are running ships, airplanes, and also I have come through scenarios where there are coal industries, and also there are deep mining companies and companies that are doing mining for gold, silver, etc., which all have deep impact on the climate. My question is, do you see some kind of direction of when you are educating these children, do you see some kind of direction of how they are going to address these things in the real world? And what are the solutions that they have in mind, if there are any?
Okay, great question, Venkat. I totally understand your cynicism, and it's very, very justified because governments and corporates and industries have the vested interests, and there's a lot of greenwashing around us taking place. So sometimes you feel, what difference can one person make, even if we were to reform our habits, even if we were to stop using disposable or switching off lights or switching to renewables, what difference would that make to the world? Because the world will continue to do what it's doing. So I totally understand that. So I'll tell you what is my objective. It works at different levels. So number one is to teach the children. First, to make them aware about the SDGs. Many of them do not even know what happens to the old mobile phone they throw away. So the first step is to make them aware of it, that it is e-waste. If it goes to the informal sector, what are the harms it causes to the workers working in the informal sector who are children like them, and also to the environment, so that next time when they're disposing of an electronic waste, they will do it more responsibly. So that is the first step, to make them aware what are fossil fuels, how are they harming the environment, why it's important to switch to electric vehicles, and so on and so forth, so that they start having these conversations at home. So this is the first step. The next step is that the children of today will be the leaders of tomorrow. They may go into manufacturing, they may go into service industry, they will take up different jobs in different sectors all over the world. If they have learned to care about the environment as a child, they will bring those practices as leaders into their businesses. And that's the shift, which is currently you don't see with the current leaders because we never grew up with that education. We are the ones who have really damaged the environment. So we never had this education. So till you give them the power of education, till you equip them with the right knowledge and the skills and the motivation to bring a change, you will not see a change in the world. So that's the crux of my job. And of course, governments, corporates, and consumers all have to do their part. If you just say that it's the duty of the government to bring a change in the policy and to make this shift happen, that's not true. Because government alone cannot do it. Companies also have a responsibility. Consumers also have a greater responsibility. So the third thing I will touch upon is that I am trying to teach everyone to do their part. How collectively it will change the world is what we will see will happen in the next few years when everybody starts doing their part for the environment. So these are the three levels at which I'm operating with a lot of hope, of course. Even if I'm able to convert 10% of the lives that I touch, I think my job is done, because at least they will be taking, and I don't know if you've heard of carbon shadow. Carbon shadow is more powerful than carbon footprint. We talk about reducing your carbon footprint, but carbon shadow is that if this one colleague of yours is doing the right action, has perhaps installed solar panels at home, is reusing the wastewater to water the gardens, and comes and talks to you about these practices, the influence of this person is far more powerful than reducing your own carbon footprint. So the carbon shadow is something I want to spread. One person changes, influences all the lives this person changes around himself or herself to change. So that is the hope I carry in my heart when I do this work. And I have already seen a lot of positive changes happening around me. We conduct Global Sustainability Awards every year. It's an annual award event where we recognize efforts by school students and educators. Now we have also included startups and NGOs who are working towards sustainability. And we see more and more ideas coming up. Innovations. You talked about innovations. So students have these brilliant ideas about innovations in sustainability. So they have like an anti-fall detector system. They have solar panels can be turned to maximize the power, and so on and so forth. Things nobody has ever taught them about. It was never included in the content that I delivered to them. But yes, it created a spark in their mind which made them think of these innovative solutions. So we give them that platform also to come up and talk about the innovative solutions for a greener planet. And I think that's motivation enough to take up jobs that will bring a change in the world ultimately.
Wonderful. So you're doing a great job on that aspect. I wish you all the best on this.
Thank you.
I have one more follow-up question on this. When we talk about needs and wants in terms of consumption, especially in a populated country like India, where we have 1.5 billion people,
Right.
taking care of the basic necessities itself is taking a toll on the environment. For example, talk about energy and water. In your education, is population part of your education, and how population is affecting the climate change, etc.?
Yes, so the goals, when we talk about no poverty, and I'm glad you spoke about needs and wants, it's difficult to talk to a 3-year-old because my content is being delivered to a 3-year-old also, or a 5-year-old for that matter, and use heavy terms like poverty. They will not be able to understand what we are talking about. So we start their education by teaching them the difference between needs and wants. So you are somebody who want a birthday party, who want a birthday cake, who want a bicycle, but are these your needs? No, these are your wants. So what is the difference? So they start understanding, and then they also develop empathy towards some other people in the society who do not even have their basic needs met. And it's tell them about the international poverty line and how these people are living below the international poverty line and their basic needs are not being met. And of course, then we tell them that there are 8 billion people in the world, and there is so much food which is getting lost. All these problems you're mentioning, be it food security, be it population control, these are the pressing world problems. They're all covered under sustainable development goals. And that's the beauty of this framework. Because in my workshop, I do this exercise with those who attended. I invite everybody to tell me any problem they think the world is facing today. And I get hundreds of responses to that. So people will say air pollution, crime against women, corruption, population, food security, so on and so forth. COVID, people will talk about COVID and healthcare and all of that. And all these problems can be assigned to the 17 goals. So that's the beauty of this framework, that it addresses all the problems the world is facing today, and everything gets covered in that. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to work on this.
Okay, great. So thanks for all the inputs. We have dealt a lot with your work. So let's move on and talk about you as a person, what you are interested apart from work, your hobbies and interests, what you do in your free time, etc.
I studied literature, so reading remains, I think, my first love. Literature remains my first love. I also watch movies now, and particularly movies based on books, because sometimes I don't find the time to read all the books I want to read. So I watch a lot of documentaries and movies based on books. I'm particularly fond of Indian writing in English. I developed a liking for it back in my college days when I was first introduced to Vikram Seth. So I read up Indian writing in English. Jhumpa Lahiri happens to be my favorite author. So this is what I do. I read, I travel. Fortunate enough that my work also takes me to various places within India and outside India. So I travel a lot. I love to work with children. So that is something I realized when I started teaching. So I find every opportunity to engage with children. I do workshops with them, which is also part of my work, but I love to do it. It's also a passion, a hobby for me. So I would say, what did I include? I said reading books, travel, and being with children are the three things I enjoy the most.
Great, thank you. Do you have any societal issues apart from, of course, the work that you're already doing? Any other societal issues that bother you or you want to work on?
I had some issues, but as I started working on sustainable development goals and started reading up more and more about it, I have been like very, very concerned about climate change, because after reading up about it, I have actually realized what a big threat it is to humanity right now. So it's not different from my work, but this is the biggest issue that I'm concerned about and I would like to dedicate my life to right now.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So, do you have any questions for me as the podcast host?
Yes, Venkat, I'm very fascinated by the work that you're doing, and I'm very curious to know what kind of stories you've recorded. Are they related to a particular subject, or you do diverse stories? What is your aim through the stories you do through these podcasts?
So, the stories are diverse. You can go through the list of podcasts that I've already recorded. Audience are from diverse fields. I have spoken to authors, data scientists, software engineers, dancers, singers, and so on. So it's not about really the profession or the work that they are doing. It's all about giving a platform for them to come and express themselves. So that's what I want to do.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I've not seen anything like this before. People have approached me for talks and interviews, but all these people were either in the same field or they felt deeply about climate change and sustainable development goals. So this is something very different and very noble, I would say.
Thank you so
Pleased to know.
much. And thank you so much for spending time with us in the podcast today. And I wish you all the best in your work that you're doing. And of course, with educating yourself with the books and the movies and whatever you aspire to do in your life. Thank you once again for appearing in the podcast.
It was a pleasure for me. Thank you for having me. I hope I was able to meet your expectations.
There's nothing called expectations. It's all about expressing yourself. So wish you all the best. Bye-bye.
Bye, Venkat.
That was a great podcast with Ritu Malhotra. Please subscribe to this channel and follow it for more awesome podcasts. Opinions expressed by the guests in this podcast are their own. The host or the sponsors of the podcast do not condone the opinions expressed by the guests or the actions arising out of those opinions. Any decisions or actions that the listeners might take as a result of listening to this podcast must be based on their own judgment and will be at their own risk. The podcast host or the sponsors will not be held responsible for the consequences of any actions and or decisions taken as a result of any content in this podcast.